Messing with dust all week, so forgive me if my throat goes out a little bit. I sound like a teenager again. My voice cracks and stuff. So today I'm going to talk about pretty much not following instructions and how the not following instructions can sometimes give you the results that you don't really desire. So, I've gone to the store many a times for my wife, and I get everything on the list. And now sometimes she gives me stuff all over the store, and I'm not used to the store, so it takes me about 2 hours to get everything on a 5-item list. But when I don't bring home something that's crucial, like chocolate chips and the chocolate chip cookie recipe, then I got to run back out to the store, which I don't want to do. Like, who knows the difference between washing clothes and doing the laundry? Yeah, Sarah informed me of this. Washing clothes is just throw them in the washer. When she told me to wash clothes when we started living together, I just threw them in the washer and left them. I was unaware that she meant to do the laundry, which is the complete task of taking them out, putting them in the dryer, taking them out of the dryer, go to folding them, and putting them away, and all that stuff. I had a class in high school, a Spanish class, and the half of the grade was homework. I didn't like homework. I failed it. And the teacher, I took it again following year, and the teacher asked my mom, I'm like, why does he want to do this again? He didn't do it all last time. Because I didn't follow instructions. There's this funny thing that I got out because Sarah keeps getting on me about one item that I've been promising her for how many years now? What? We've been living in our house for how long, and you keep on me about the mantle on the fireplace. She wants a new mantle. 24 years later. So I bought this shirt kind of being out of spite. It's a couple more days construction. And it says we're always almost done. And if you watch this guy, he's just making fun of procrastinating jobs, and he's like, well, people ask me after I built this deck, are you going to put a handrail there on these stairs? He goes, I am. It's only going to take me a couple more days. And but here I got one for my wife, and I hate to throw you under the bus, honey. I do it all the time. Oh, come on, it's going to be funny. You go somewhere and you eat something, and it's so delicious. And like, we've got to get this recipe, and the person is gracious enough to give you the recipe. And then she tells me as I'm going to work, I'm going to make this evening because we loved it so much. So she makes it that evening. We eat it, and it's nothing like what we had before. And I said, well, you got the recipe, don't you? She goes, well, I replaced a few of the ingredients. I left out the butter. I only used half of the sugar and replaced something with something else. No, it's not. It's not the same thing. I was looking forward to the exact same thing. It's not what I expected. It's like baklava. Anybody know what baklava is? I love it. It's a little pastry. It's got layers to it, and it's filled with like either maybe a pistachio or a walnut, crushed nuts, and it's covered in honey. If you made that with lasagna noodles, mashed peanuts, and I don't know, put some molasses on it, it's not baklava. She didn't do that. No. She didn't do that. But you get my point. I actually am the worst baker around because I was going to surprise her one time when we were still in the military. So I thought, I'm going to make a cake. And it came out, and it was flat. And it was about that flat. And I'm like, I don't know what I did. She come home. And I was like, I don't know what I did. She goes, well, maybe you used the wrong kind of flour. I don't know the difference between flours. So then we made it again, and it bubbled over in the pan. So I just thought, that's the last of my bacon. So I truly do love the Old Testament, and a lot of the characters in there. What sparked my interest in the Old Testament was the stories that you hear, but you only get little bits of them, like Noah and the Ark, or David and Goliath, Adam and Eve. Jonah is one that, you always heard he got sucked up by a fish and then spit out on land. But you didn't hear about, after he teaches to them, when you go back and read it again, he started arguing with the Lord and got actually mad at the Lord because he didn't spite them. And the Lord said, what are you talking about? I wanted to offer them grace. I wanted to offer them this. So if you don't follow the instructions, you may not get the result. So I was reading through Samuel, and I read through Samuel a lot because I just love the story about how Samuel and Saul and David and all that stuff. But then the same people that did The Chosen, I don't know if you all watched The Chosen or not, they did a series of the House of David. And I was about at the same place where this started. And so I figured I'd watch the show. And there was a couple things they did really well. There's a handful of things I didn't like, but the main thing was the incomplete obedience to God is what started Saul's downfall. So starting in verse 8 of 1 Samuel, he's already a judge of Israel. And he was getting old, and he appointed 2 of his sons to replace him. And that didn't turn out so good. They had turned away from Samuel's ways, and it actually says they turned aside after dishonest gain and accepted bribes for perverted justice. See, all the elders of all the tribes basically got together and said, hey, Samuel, your kids are, not too good. And now we know you're getting old. So, hey, we want a king. Well, Samuel wasn't really happy about going to God and asking God for a king. And to be honest with you, God was kind of taken aback, and he said, and in chapter 8, listen to all the people are saying to you. It is not that they have rejected you that they have rejected, but they have rejected me as their king. Now listen to them, but warn them solemnly, and let them know that king who will reign over them will claim his rights, which means the king can do what he wants. So when he went back to Israel, this is verse 11 now. He said, this is what the king says. I'm going to start paraphrasing because there's a lot of stuff here. He will take your sons and make them serve with his chariots and horses, and they will run in front of his chariots. He will take your daughters and make them to be perfumers and cooks and bakers. He will take the best of your fields and your vineyards and your olive groves and give them to his attendants. Your male and female servants and the best of your cattle and donkeys he will take for his own use. Attend to your flocks, and you and yourselves will become his slaves. When that day comes, you will cry out for relief of the king that you have chosen, but the Lord will not answer. But the elders still insisted on having a king. So he went out, and God showed him Saul. And in verse 9, we find that Saul is this is quote, a handsome young man, as handsome a young man that could be found anywhere in Israel, and he was taller than anyone else. And Samuel was told to anoint Saul the king, so he did. Now Saul didn't turn out quite the way everybody expected, which kind of reinforced what God had warned them. So in verse 9 through 14, there's a lot of stuff going on in those verses. But at the very last verse of the 14 is, in all the days of Saul, there was bitter war with the Philistines. And whenever Saul saw a mighty or brave man, he took him into his service. Which really wrapped up the whole, you want a king, you got it. So, now, here we are. Samuel goes back to Saul for one last one last assignment. And in verse 2 of 15, God tells Saul to tell him, or to Samuel to tell Saul. I'm sorry, guys. I'm tired. We were out late last night. Visiting old friends, it was good, but we stayed out way too late. I will punish the Amalekites for what they did to Israel when they waylaid them as it came up from Egypt. Now go and attack the Amalekites and totally destroy all that belongs to them. Do not spare them. Put to death men, women, children, infants, cattle, and sheep, camels, and donkeys. That's very specific instructions from God through Samuel. Now let's look at this through Samuel's eyes, all right? Let's just think about how Samuel told Saul this. Saul said, okay, I understand. Samuel goes away. I don't know where he was. But that evening, I can imagine Samuel just sitting by his fire, eating, and God gives him a word. And when the word came, I can relate with Samuel because it's like you're home and you get a call from work. Maybe he thought his day was done, but not that it's the same as work, but it's kind of like being interrupted in your evening routine. So when the word came to Samuel, a word of the Lord came to Samuel. I am all tongue twisted today, guys. And he said, I regret that I have made Saul king because he has turned away from me and has not carried out my instruction. And Samuel was angry, and he cried out to God all night for Saul. Early in the morning, this is in 12, Samuel got up and went to meet Saul, but he was told that Saul has gone to Carmel, and there he has set up a monument in his own honor and has turned and gone down to Gilgal. I'll just say it that way. When Samuel reaches Saul, Saul said, the Lord bless you, and I have carried out the Lord's instructions. Well, that kind of, when you hear it from God that he did not follow his instructions, Samuel called him on it. Samuel's response was, then what is this bleating of sheep? What is the lowing of cows that I hear? Wow. Saul, gosh. I would hate to be in Saul's shoes. Saul answered, the soldiers brought them from the Amalekites. They spared the very best of the sheep and the cattle to sacrifice to the Lord your God, but we totally destroyed the rest. Samuel had enough. And he said, enough. Let me tell you what the Lord said to me last night. And Saul said, tell me. Although you were once small in your own eyes, did you not become the head of the tribes of Israel? Golly, Ned, I'm just... I feel for Saul. I really do, because here he thought in his own mind, he genuinely thought that he followed the Lord's stuff, but he didn't. So, and he sent you on a mission saying, go and completely destroy those wicked people. Wage war against them until you wiped them out. Did you not obey the Lord? Why did you pounce and plunder and do evil in the Lord's eyes? But I did obey the Lord. I went on a mission the Lord assigned me, completely destroyed the Amalekites and brought back Agag their king. Everybody, but I saved the king. What? The soldiers took sheep and cattle from plunder. The best was devoted, or that we're going to devote to God in order to sacrifice him. That's not what God said, right? Samuel replied, does the Lord delight in burnt offerings or sacrifices as much obeying the Lord? To obey is better than the sacrifice. To heed is better than the fat of rams. For rebellion is like the sin of divination, and arrogance is like evil of idolatry. Because you have rejected the word of God, he has rejected you as king. I need to practice a little bit more on my getting words out and not like tearing up. Because I feel so passionate about this stuff. And Saul repented, but it was way too late. He said, I've sinned and violated. I beg you, forgive me my sin and come back so that we may worship the Lord. But Samuel said, I won't go back with you. You have rejected the word of the Lord, and he has rejected you king as king over Israel. And Samuel had turned to leave, and he grabbed his robe. And just as his robe and tore it, and Samuel said, the Lord has torn the kingdom of Israel to you today, and one of your neighbors who is better than you has given it to one of your neighbors who is better than you. He who has the glory of Israel does not lie or change his mind, for he is not a human being that he should change his mind. Now, keep in mind, at this point, in the future, Saul will lose the king, being king. But God didn't take it away from him. He didn't remove him. And I studied this for a little bit. It never says that God removed him from king. David later on says that, when Saul was chasing him down, he goes, why would I want to kill the Lord's anointed? Because he was never removed from kingship. But now Samuel ends up finishing his job. Did you know that? Samuel said, bring me a gag. Well, first off, he wanted to save face. So he realized that in front of everybody else, please honor me before my elders and my people before Israel. This is in verse 30. Come back with me so that I may worship the Lord your God. So Samuel went back with Saul. He just wanted to, I think Samuel just wanted to realize everybody to calm down because, yes, he had devastating news to Saul, but he was still king. And at that point, he relented and went back to kind of save face in front of the other people. And because it was a big deal that if Samuel wasn't with him, Samuel was still really respected among the people. But after that, right after that, Samuel had to actually finish Saul's job. Samuel said, bring me Agag, the king of the Amalekites. And Agag thought, well, I'm not going to be killed now. No priest is going to kill me. But Samuel said, as your sword has made women childless, so will your mother be childless among women. And Samuel put Agag to death before the Lord at Gilgal. So Samuel, an old man, had to kill the last Amalekite for Samuel. The very next chapter, Samuel was told by God to anoint David. And again, David was always respectful to Saul. He never laid a finger on him. He never said that he was against him. But Saul was ruined at that last decision not to obey the Lord. And building himself up before his own altar and not giving the Lord credit for the victory. That was the other thing that really sealed his fate. In chapter 16, verse 14, this is where it really gets me. The Spirit of the Lord has departed from Saul, and an evil spirit from the Lord tormented him. So think about that. You've got the Spirit of the Lord in you. Then it's taken away. As if that's not bad enough. Then he allows an evil spirit to basically torment you, haunt you, well, whatever you want to put it. But that's a big, big, big twist for Saul. And at that point, I think if you would read through the rest of the Samuel until he passes away, he just did crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. I'll give you an example. So in 21, we find David goes to Nob, which is, I don't fully understand it, but it was a town full of priests. is where all the priests stayed. So David was talking to the priest, and the priest had no idea that David was running from Saul. So he gave him some food and actually gave him a weapon, which was Goliath's sword that was taken after he had killed him. And Saul found this out. So he went down there and talked to Ahimelech. And he said, this was the priest that actually gave him the food and the weapon. But he says, why have you conspired against me? You and the son of Jesse, giving him bread and the sword and inquiring of God for him, so that he has rebelled against me and lies and waits for me, as he does today. And Ahimelech answered the king, what of your servants, who of all your servants is more loyal than David, the king's son-in-law, the captain of your bodyguard, highly respected of your household? Was this the first time that I have inquired of God for him? Of course not. Let not the king accuse your servant or any of his father's family, for your servants know nothing about this whole affair. But the king said, surely you will die, Ahimelech, you and your whole family. And then get this. Then the king ordered his guards, turn and kill the priests of the Lord, because they have sided with David, and they knew he was fleeing. Yet they did not tell me. But the king's officials were not going to do it. They had none of it. They refused and were unwilling to raise a hand and strike against the priests of the Lord. Then king ordered Doeg, you strike down the priests. So the Edomite, Doeg the Edomite turned against it. That day he killed 85 men of the priesthood, because they wore the linen ephod. He also put the sword of Nob to the sword, Nob, town of priests, with its men, women, children, infants, its cattle and donkeys and sheep. Now he was willing to do that for himself, but he wasn't willing to do it for God. How reversed of a position? How crooked do you have to be to kill a whole town of priests and slay everything in that town for vengeance? Now, Saul made a decision of destroying the whole town, but it was a lesser sin of the Amalekites that told Saul to do so, but Saul did not. Wait a second. It was a lesser sin of the Amalekites that God told. What the heck? Hold on. This was a lesser sin than what Saul did. That's right. I wrote that wrong, honey. But one person got away. But one son of Ahimelech, son of Ahitub, named Abiathar, escaped and fled to join David. And he told David that the Saul had killed the priests of the Lord. And then David said to go to Abiathar that day. Though the Edomite was there, and he knew to be sure to tell Saul, I am responsible for the death of your whole family. Stay with me, and don't be afraid. The man who wants to kill you is trying to kill me too, and you will be safe with me. This is verse 20. So what happened was David accepted this guy that was fleeing, but he said that Saul's trying to kill me too. And he accepted him into his ranks, and he protected him. I almost called this a tale of two kings, but I didn't think, I was so focused on how Saul fell from his grace before the Lord because he didn't obey. And I wanted to focus on that because we know how David and most of us know the story of David. I'm not going to get into all that, but the transition from Saul to David is a little muddy because Saul is chasing David, and at one point he could have killed him like 3 times. But every time he said, I am not supposed to destroy or kill the Lord's anointed. And after that, Saul became so vindictive and cruel and totally forgot David's grace toward him. And he kept looking for David. But Saul had God's blessing, and not realizing it, he threw it away. And God gives us all the strength, all of our strength, and gives it to us in our own portion. We are not all meant to be kings, by no means. Not in this world, anyway. But when God gives you something, a gift, use it. Use it to its fullest. Use it to its, use it till that gift is depleted, and then he gives you another gift. And then use all that up. And if you're lucky, he'll keep giving it to you. He'll keep giving you gifts. If you not master, but if you get really good at one, he'll give you another. And then you're good at that one too. Well, he'll give you another. And the Lord's blessings through you will go out among the people. But Saul was so focused on himself. Can you imagine building you're told by the Lord to go kill these people. And I know that sounds terrible. But he goes and kills the people, thinks he does a great job, and then builds a monument to himself. That's totally backwards. God gave me the glory in his name. I destroyed these people in his name. That should have been it. He should have built a altar to God, thanking God that he gave Saul the strength to defeat them. When God gives you the strength, use it, all of it, in accordance to his will. And don't be shy and don't hold back. That's all I got. Yeah, y'all come up back.